Time now for the Sunday Roundtable, and we're joined this morning by Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Chief, guys, what are we going to talk about this morning? There's nothing. Did anything happen this week?
No news.
Well, actually, we now know that Charlie Baker's going to stay a Republican.
Oh, really?
That's one thing that's
There you go.
absolutely been cleared up, right? But the governor's decision not to run for a third term has sent the political establishment, as you say, into a tailspin. So let's start with Maura Healey. Should she run, and do you think she will, Marianne?
She has every advantage to run. She's run twice statewide and won. She's got a political organization second to none. She has national assets as well. And I would argue at this point she has an obligation to run. When you look at the fact that Roe v. Wade will likely be overturned by the Supreme Court, next will be gay marriage and gay rights. Go down the list. We're now in a place where who the governor of your state is depends on what your state's going to be like. And undermining our democracy is the objective of all the Trump supporters. So she needs to be the fearless person who ran against Warren Tolman, got outspent 10-1, and crushed him in the process. But for everyone who thought Charlie Baker's decision would make Maura Healey's decision, as we sit here today, that is not the case.
Maura Healey, what do you say as a Republican?
Well, to me, it's unclear, does she want to be governor? And if she does want to be governor, why? I mean, there's a lot more than making it sort of a supercharged AG position. You know, where are you on the budget? Where are you on taxes? There's a lot to lay out. But if she got in, she'd lead the pack.
So the next name we'll put on the table is Marty Walsh. He had been sending signals for months that he wanted to get out of his D.C. job. Now he and his chief of staff and unsuccessful congressional candidate Dan Coe are spreading the word that they want to run for governor and lieutenant governor. Marianne, let me start with you. Flat out, good idea? What idea?
You know, if I'm Joe Biden and I see my Secretary of Labor out there talking about running for governor, and I see his chief of staff talking about running for lieutenant governor, my question is, who's running the Department of Labor?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's an unimportant job right now going into the 2022 election. That said, as we all know and have heard these past few days, behind the scenes, the effort by Marty Walsh and his allies to get Maura Healey out of this race is akin to the same tactics we saw that Anissa Asabi George campaign use against Michelle Wu. There's a desperation to his desire to run. Make no mistake about it, Marty Walsh is going to do everything he can to be in this race.
Forgive the simple nature of the question, Rob, though, and as I pick up with the name Marty, is it a better fit for him to be a governor or a mayor than to be a Secretary of Labor, or no?
I mean, I think he's doing fine as Secretary of Labor, and I think Biden likes him, and he could probably stay there for a while. I disagree with Marianne. I mean, what I've seen is Marty Walsh saying he won't run if the Attorney General runs. So I think he's ceding to her. And I think part of that reason is that Boston mayors have terrible records statewide. I mean,
well, AGs haven't done well.
AGs haven't either. The last 4 AGs are 0 for 4. But voters statewide really don't like Boston mayors. They think that Boston politics is corrupt. That's a hurdle that he would have to overcome, and Healey would have to overcome that AG curse.
But both things can be true, okay? I said he's working really hard behind the scenes to keep her out of the race. And he has said publicly and privately, if Maura Healey runs, I won't run against her. Both those things are true.
Does that mean he can't beat her? Is that what that means?
Yeah, look, Marty Walsh realized he couldn't beat Michelle Wu. Marty Walsh cannot beat Maura Healey statewide.
Okay, let's say both of you are wrong. Let's say they both get into the race, okay? Let's say that it ends up Marty Walsh and Maura Healey are going to vie for it, okay? What happens to Ben Downing, Sonia Chang Diaz, and Danielle Allen, Rob?
Well, I think some of those, let's call them second-tier candidates because they're not very well known. Some of them will drop out. Some of them will drop down to other races, potentially LG, and some of them won't get enough delegates to qualify for the primary. So that's what's going to happen. If you have Walsh and Healey at the top of the race, it'll really be a demolition derby, and maybe only 1 or 2 of those other candidates might get enough delegates to qualify for the primary.
Let's say only one of them does end up running. It's Maura Healey or it's Marty Walsh. What happens to those other candidates, do you think?
If it's Maura Healey, Rob's analysis is spot on. All those things happen. D, all of the above. If it's Marty Walsh, it might be harder for some of them, but I don't see them dropping out because he's more conservative than they are. People believe progressives should have the edge here in Massachusetts. We'll see if that's true or not. But I don't think he scares people out of the race in a way that ultimately I think Maura Healey will.
All right, so that brings us to the next point in the conversation. And again, here we are in December of 2021, but with that list of Democrats looking to run for governor, any Republican names that could sound viable to challenge Jeff Deal, or is Jeff Deal going to make it to the November general?
So the names that we've heard out there are largely Andrew Lelling, right? I would throw Brian Shortsleeve in there because at one point he had expressed interest in that as well. But I think we have to look at the Republican primary not as Republican primary, but the Trump primary. Trump got 1.1 million votes here in 2020. That's why Deal is down in Bedminster kissing his ring. There aren't that many Republicans in Massachusetts. Charlie Baker could have beaten him because of the unenrolled voters. I don't see anyone else being able to do that.
But Massachusetts has a history of electing Republican governors.
He's a
It
Trumper.
does. I mean, there's only been
Okay, there you go.
there's only been one Republican governor for 2 terms since 1990, right? So people like balance in the corner office when you have a legislature that's prone to tax and spend, no question about it. I agree with those 2 names that Mary Ann threw out there, Shortsleeve and Lelling. Brian Shortsleeve helped reform the MBTA after Deval Patrick messed it up, frankly. And Lelling has a knack for the news. He has a knack for the news and a no-nonsense demeanor that I think is appealing to voters. I would put both of them as favorites over Deal if either one of them
And
got
could
in.
they raise the money needed, do you think?
Sure, I think so. I mean, you never know. I mean, we judge these things on paper, and then you actually have to run the race, whether it's Democratic candidates or Republican candidates. You got to raise the money. You got to put in the effort. You have to be good on TV, good in debates to win.
I don't think that they can beat Deal because they can't get the unenrolled voters in that Republican primary, and he's got all the Trump
I mean,
voters.
Deal's not that strong. I mean, people talk about
like
Deal
him.
just because he's the only guy in there,
Yeah.
but I mean, he hasn't won many races in his
Correct.
life. He's not that well known. He's eminently beatable in my view.